Hey everyone, I am Edrelyn Badayos together with my group mates. So we are the Group 12 Power Rangers and we are assigned of this story, Freak the Mighty. So before we proceed, let's have first a little bit introduction of the story. So Freak the Mighty is a young adult novel by Rodman Philbrick. Published in 1993, it was followed by the novel Max the Mighty in 1998. The primary characters are Franz Maxwell Kane, a large, developmentally disabled but kind-hearted boy, and Kevin Avery, nicknamed Freak, who is physically disabled but very intelligent. Kevin is diagnosed with Marshall's syndrome. So the novel was adapted for the screen under the title The Mighty by Charles Leavitt. The film was shot in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and Cincinnati, Ohio, and directed by Peter Chalsom and released in 1998. So Freak the Mighty is narrated by its major character, Maxwell Kane. Max narrates from a first-person perspective as he recounts his friendship with a small boy named Kevin Avery or Freak. So since the narration is in first person, all of the events and characters of the text are filtered through Max's perspective and include only his interpretation and experiences. So good day class, and for today we will have our oral recitations as what I told you last meeting. So you must be ready. As I call your name, you must answer my question. So for the first question, who are the characters of the story Freak the Mighty? Miss Templa, can you answer my question?
Yes, ma'am. So the characters of the stories are Maxwell Max Kane, a 12-year-old boy who is a narrator and protagonist of the novel. Max lives with his grandparents because his father is in prison for killing his mother. Max is very big for his age and looks like his father, so people fear him. But he is actually very sensitive and kind. Max doesn't think he's very smart, and he doesn't have any friends before he meets Freak. Max is the physical strength half of Freak the Mighty. Kevin Freak Avery, a 12-year-old boy who moves into the house next door to Max. Kevin, whom Max referred to as a freak, is extremely intelligent and has a quick and sarcastic. He also has a condition called Morquio syndrome that affects his growth and mobility. He is very small for his age, wears leg braces, and uses crutches to get around. Freak doesn't have any friends before he meets Max. Freak is a brain half of Freak the Mighty. Grim, Max's maternal grandfather, who Max lived with after his mother's death. Grim loves Max, but he also recognizes the physical similarities between Max and his father, Kenneth Killer Kane, and worries that Max could be like his father in other ways. Grum, Max's maternal grandmother and the wife of Grim. Grum is warm and sweet. She loves Max and worries about him constantly. Kenneth Kenny Kane, also known as a Killer Kane. Max's father, who is in prison for killing Max's mother. Kenny Keller Kane is a big, strong, cruel, and manipulative. Grum refers to him as an accident of nature. Loretta Lee, a woman from a dangerous part of town who knew Max's mother and the father when they were younger. Iggy Lee, Loretta Lee's husband and a former friend of Kenny Kane. Gwen Avery, Kevin's mother and a childhood friend of Max's mother Annie. The next is Tony D. His nickname is Blade, a dangerous bully from Max and Freak's school. Mrs. Addison, the principal at Max and Freak's school. She teaches him some stuffs and she is wise. And lastly, Mrs. Donnelly, Max and Freak's English teacher.
Very good, you got it right. So for the next question, where is the setting of the story? Miss Balazuela, can you answer my question, please?
Yes, ma'am. So this is the settings of the story. Author Rodman Philbrick has suggested that the book's setting is near his former high school in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Instead of focusing on the broader location, Freak the Mighty's sub-settings include his basement, bedroom, his safe neighborhood, school, the milk pod, his friend's part of town that is not as nice as Max, and imaginary settings such as Yonder and the experimental bionics unit. One of the reasons for the book having no specific, more encompassing setting is that the powers of imagination and storytelling are major themes in this book. Its settings are not physically limited but can go above and beyond depth and into a world created by Max's imagination.
Correct. So that is the setting of the story. So for the additional question, can you tell me, Miss Valenzuela, the plot of the story?
Yes, so this is the plot of the story. For the exposition, Freak the Mighty is about an unlikely friendship between slow learning but physically strong Max and intelligent, physically challenged Kevin. The exposition includes learning about the two main characters, their families, and the history of their friendship. They were aware of each other as far as back daycare days, but became friends when the two families moved near each other. Kevin gets a toy airplane stuck in a tree, Max rescues it, and the two team up for the rest of the novel. Next is the conflict of the story. Max an external conflict with his father, Killer Kane, whom his father kidnaps and tries to strangle him. These external acts also cause internal conflict for Max when it forces him to relive the trauma of witnessing his father murdering his mother when he was younger. The next one is the rising action of the story. In Freak the Mighty, the rising action spans a plot from the inciting event when Freak moves in the next door to Max to that climax when Max's father attempts to kill him. Max's conflict involves not having a space in exist in as himself, as he always identified by his disability or his role as a Killer Kane's son. Next is the climax of the story occurs when Max's father tries to strangle Max and Freak arrives to save him with a ruse involving a water gun and fox sulfuric acid. Throughout the text, Max has strangled him with his father, murder of his own mother, and its effect on his life. Next one is the falling action. When Freak dies, Max gets angry. Kicker returns, learns Robot's story made up to give hope. Freak has a seizure and is rushed to the hospital. He asks Max to write down their adventures, and the night he dies in the hospital. Last one is the resolution of the story. After he spent a long time mourning his friend, he picks up the blank book Freak left him and begins to write their story. It could be the beginning of something new for Max.
Very good. Thank you for that, Miss Valenzuela. So now, can you tell me the conflict of the story, Miss Cervantes?
So yes, ma'am, the conflict in Roadmar Pelbrick's story, which is the Freak the Mighty, that concern Max's attempt to escape from his father, Kenny Keller Kane, who kidnapped him shortly after being released from the prison. So, Kenny Keller Kane murdered Max's mother and was sent to prison for 8 years. So, however, he was released from prison after his parole hearing and immediately travels to Grim and Gram's home, where he ends up kidnapping his son. So Max has no desire to be with his father, who plans on traveling throughout the United States, making money as a fraudulent street preacher. So after kidnapping Max, Killer Kane ties and gags him in the basement of an abandoned building. So eventually, Killer Kane strangles his son, but Kevin comes to Max to rescue. So Kevin sprays Killer Kane in the eyes with homemade paper spray, and the police eventually arrest Max's father. So there are also a primary external conflict in the story concerns that Max self-esteem struggle. So at the beginning of the story, Max has extremely low self-esteem and have insecure. So however, Kevin comes into life of Max's neighborhood, and his friendship helps Max eventually grow and develop into confident and mature adolescent. So Kevin also experienced an external conflict, which is concern his health. So Kevin struggles to accept his fate and use his imagination to deal with the harsh reality of his difficult situation. So at the end of the story, Kevin dies and Max has dealt with the traumatic death of his best friend po.
So how do they solve the problem, or what is the resolution of the story?
Yes, ma'am. I think the resolution of the story Freak the Mighty
is occur when Max meet Loretta Lee several months after Freak death. Max has been made to return to school and it's still grieving over Freak. Loretta tells Max that Freak's mother has moved to California and it's happy with a new boyfriend. She challenged Max's assertions that he is doing nothing and he thinks about it all the way home. So at the home of Max, he takes out the book Freak have given to him and began writing their story. So this step allows him to resolve the conflict of his lost po.
That's right. So thank you for that, Miss Cervantes. So before we summarize the story, can you tell me, Miss Templa, the central theme of the story?
Yes, ma'am. The main themes in The Freak and the Mighty are transformation, love, and friendship. Transformation, because it is a several different types of transformation are displayed in the story. From the transformation of Max and Kevin into Freak the Mighty to the transformation of their quest from imaginary to real. Love and friendship. Whereas Max believes no one cares about him at the beginning of the book, the love Freak shows Max helps him grow and see himself in a new light. These themes resemble the lesson that his book gave about friendship. Friendship is so powerful that it can change someone's life in a major way. Also, how the ability of teamwork can help you rise above all the challenges in life. Both Max and Freak resemble these two themes in a major ways. Friendship is like a gold chain. Each link is a memory from the past to present. So, the main idea of the Freak the Mighty is that strength can be found through friendship.
Very good. So now, Miss Suarez, can you tell me the symbolism of the story and what lessons have you learned?
Yes, ma'am. So the story Freak the Mighty symbolizes the power of friendship to help people reach their potential and become better versions of themselves. So there are also other things that you can find that have symbols and meanings in the stories. So first is the American Flyer wagon. So it is old and rusted. It appears in the story when Freak drags it across the backyard to a tree to climb onto it and tries to retrieve his ornithopter. So Freak's friends Gwen and Max use this wagon to pull Freak and help him out. So the wagon symbolizes Freak's inventive use of whatever he has at hand to help him overcome his physical limitations. Next is the blank journal. So when Kevin gives Max a journal telling him, "I want you to fill it up with our adventures," Freak is giving Max a fresh start. To start a new history and put everything that happened with his mom and dad behind him. Next is Freak's dictionary. So when Kevin creates a dictionary that is written in terms that would easily be understood by Max, to encourage him to read more and see his own potential. So in this part, the dictionary symbolizes Max's growth and development as a person. Next is Kevin's ornithopter. So the toy bird is pivotal in the lives of the two young men, as it was the plot device that brought them together, and as such, Max even brings it with him to the hospital to comfort his dying friends. So the ornithopter is emblematic of their collective desire for freedom, Kevin to be freed of his weak diseased body, and Max freedom from his tragic past and perception of himself as stupid. Next is King Arthur. So Freak looks towards King Arthur's story as an echo of his own life. At least that's how he sees it. Freak believes that his condition is temporary and that he, like the fictional king, is also destined for greatness. King Arthur also symbolizes Kevin's bright outlook for the future, implicitly desiring to be given an opportunity, despite what the doctors say, to grow up from a weak, sick child into a strong, brave knight who inspires others to greatness. King Arthur represents something else for Max, however. He symbolizes the opening of an entirely new path for the young man, finally having overcome his fear of reading and writing by having filled up the blank journal. Next is the Down Under. So the down under is what Max calls the basement, where he spends a great deal of time and when he is sad and or afraid. So which was often before he met the diminutive Kevin. The down under is symbolic of the great grief, fear, and shame that he has endured and lived with for so long. The down under is not a pleasant place as Max describes. He hides there because it is easier for him to hide rather than face up to the ugly realities of his life. So next, there are 4 lessons you can learn in Freak the Mighty. First, the friends are essential to a person and you don't really know someone's true potential till they have a good friend. Second, to live your life the best that you can while you can. Third, don't let life take off without you. And lastly, life is a journey with ups and downs, but you can get through anything.
Very good. Thank you for that, Miss Suarez. So for the last question, Miss Saling, can you summarize the story Freak the Mighty?
Yes, ma'am. So, Freak the Mighty is a story written by Rodman Philbrick and published in 1993. It is about 2 boys who do not seem to fit in. Max is a bigger for his age and towers all the other kids. And Kevin is a young boy referred to as Freak, intelligent, and very tiny. The novel begins with Max, who feels isolated and finds a tough time getting friends and spends much of the time in his room nursing rejection from his age mates. Max's father is a killer, and his staunch resemblance with his son makes people afraid of him. So he do not have friends. Max meets Kevin, also known as a freak by other kids. Kevin is a disabled and walks with crutches, has leg braces, and Morquio syndrome. Besides, he is resilient and intelligent. The summer before 8th grade, to Max's surprise, Freak and his mom, the beautiful Gwen, move just a few doors away from him. Max is too shy to talk to Freak, but he watches him from behind some bushes. Freak spots Max and tells the Earthling to show himself, which is the beginning of their unusual friendship. When school starts, both Max and Kevin's grandparents and mother arrange so that the new friends can be in the same special education class. Max helps Kevin to get around while Kevin appreciates by assisting Max in reading. Max's father Kenny is later released from jail on parole. He is a known notorious criminal. On the eve of Christmas, he kidnaps Max and ties him in an abandoned building while looking for a car to drive away. A woman by the name Loretta approaches and tries to help Max break out. Kenny, who is responsible for the death of his wife, the mother of Max, comes back and starts choking Loretta and Max. So Loretta is surprised that Kenny killed his wife when he tried to defend himself. So Max, however, confirms that he witnessed the killing and further claimed that it was true choking the same way he was trying to choke both Loretta and him. So Kevin manages to show up with a squirt gun filled with what he claims is a sulfuric acid. So the solution turned out not to be a real acid but a caustic. He uses the solution to free Max and his father is arrested and taken back to jail. So on Kevin's birthday, he experienced another seizure and he is hurriedly taken to the hospital but eventually dies. So Kevin's death makes Max troubled and he withdraws from the world for some time. So after a year, Max gets inspiration from the dictionary Kevin made for him to write about their adventures and friendship.
Alright, so thank you for that, Miss Saling. So thank you, class, for your cooperations. Clearly, all of you really read and understand the story. I hope that you will apply to real-life situations all of the lessons you have learned from today. So that would be all for today. Goodbye and God bless everyone.